Welcome back to another episode of the Bear Trap, a Bears podcast by a Bears fan. I'm your host, Terry, and today talking about our Week 9 loss against the Philadelphia Eagles. It was not a pretty one to watch, especially in that first half. It didn't go well. But let me just off the top, before we even get started, just talk about some of these misnomers because I hear it so much. And again, if you can't understand these things, then go somewhere else and listen, because that's surface level stuff that if you can't get that, then you can't have a deeper conversation about football. I'm talking about these people with the Deshaun Watson Mahomes thing. Number one, I see that. Oh, well, you know who would have made that pass? Deshaun Watson. You see what Deshaun Watson's doing? It is not an apples to apples comparison. I've said this many times. So if you're still those type of fans that don't understand that, then I don't know what to tell you. You don't take, it's not the same equation. You don't take one from here and put them in there and get the same result. You're talking about completely different coaching, completely different supporting cast. You're talking about a completely different playbook, everything down the line. There's so many factors to that you would not just get the same equation. That's not how that works. So I'm tired of people hearing that. And the fact is, none of them were considered great prospects coming out. There's a reason they didn't go 1, 2, and 3 because they definitely had holes. And so everyone went through their own journey, whether it was Mahomes getting to sit down, whether it was Watson playing well but then getting hurt and sitting for the rest of the season, or whether it was Trubisky coming in with a really bad offense and getting thrown into the fire. Everybody had their own different journey. And I've said it so many times on this channel, I don't get into comparing quarterbacks for this exact reason. But anyway, the I formation. I know, especially after this game, people are like, well, there it is. It's just the I formation. Why don't you go in the I formation? Just keep running every single play in that I formation. Just keep running ISO. Like, yes, we would love to think it's that easy. And trust me, there's high school teams that wouldn't even do that. And you think it's going to work in the NFL? There's obviously advantages to every formation and every play call depending on when and how you use it. That's the game of football. That's the chess match. But to sit and think, even I hear some of these commentators, yep, just get an I formation. That's what's good. And I just like, yeah, really? Seriously? That's a very, surface level, analysis of that. But we have had a little bit of attitude adjustment and some good plays out of the I formation that doesn't make it the end all be all. So just those few things off the top that I'm not really trying to hear. So anyway, getting into it, our offense. Overall, I got to get an offense a generous C-, a generous, because there's no excuse for whatever we talked about with Nagy and Trubisky and the O-line and the run game. There's no excuse for you to effectively, I know there's a last drive and all that, but effectively you had 1 yard for an entire half of football. That I don't care if we ran the curl concept every single play. We better get more than 1 yard out of it. It was tough. It was tough to watch, I'll say that. And then the second half, of course, we saw the team move the ball and play a little better. And some people want to talk about, well, what's the difference? Everybody, the I formation again. Really, it was the difference of field position. As I've mentioned this before, and it has came up pretty big in this game, that the most effective offenses are usually going to have good starting field position. What about special teams or defense? And so you saw us with better field position. You saw us make some big plays, admittedly, but we had better field position overall. And the Eagles had worse field position overall in the second half. And, of course, that should make sense. That's how the battle goes. And so you saw the offenses do a little bit different. But overall, it was so ineffective. Even in the second half, I get like, okay, we got some good runs, then we play action, and we hit some shot plays. That's all well and good. But then we get to the point where it's like you're playing Madden or something, and it's like, okay, kind of like these fans. Okay, I formation worked. Let's just keep doing that. Okay, play action work. Let's just keep play action. And it was just like we were doing play action when we didn't need to. We had a big 3rd and 9 on a drive where we could have actually, got into this game or head in this game. 3rd and 9, and you go under center and run a play action. Forget that you shouldn't run a play action period because it's 3rd and 9. Nobody believes you're going to run. Then you're going to do it from under center so the timing is completely off for you to even get anything. And it just seems so unintentional is the word I'll say. Our offense seems very unintentional. Whether that killed me. Whether we're talking about the curl concept consistently, whether we're talking about the situational play calling, which I've said again is very different than overall play calling when we're talking about Nagy, but still, many times it just seems like we're doing something to do something. And I know many people made this joke about playing Madden, but it's starting to seem like that. It's starting to see, let me scroll through a play. Okay, I like that play. Let's do that. Whereas you see the Eagles, even though they weren't world beaters, they didn't put up 40 points, they didn't do all that, but they moved the ball, they pick up first downs, and everything seems intentional. Intentional to the fact that we know this defense likes to line up like this when we have this formation. And then they like to run this coverage, and so their corner and safety are going to vacate these spaces. We run it here. That's intentional. Trust me, it's levels to not play calling, it's levels to play design and to a game plan design, excuse me. Very, very many levels where you can really break it down. And you would guess in the NFL, everybody's doing it to the highest degree. And that's honestly just not the case. And I'm starting to see that too. I was thinking about doing a video, and I might still, or episode, and I still might do one talking about coaching and breaking down what it's really like. Because people seem to think, oh, you're a coach, you coach. That's it. That's not how it works. There's, just like a football players, there's a lot of skill sets. There's a lot of different talents and everything in that. And within all that, we talk about play calling. We talk about play design. There is game plan and game prep. And that is one thing I'm starting. And I've already said Nagy's a young coach that needs to grow. But I'm really starting to see that hole in that part of his game. Because nothing we run seems intentional. It doesn't seem like we know they like to do this, so we're going to attack this. It seems like we're doing the same thing over and over again for whatever reason, whether it's being stubborn, which I don't think it is, or whether you think Trubisky can only handle this, whatever. Or we're just running something that like we feel like that's what we're supposed to be running. And our screen game has been good. I know Montgomery dropped the pass on the major screen that was supposed to go for some yards. But overall, our screen game just hasn't been good. And the way we run them, whether it's bootlegging one way and throwing it back across and all it, like you see the Eagles, which is the tree, one of the trees that Nagy comes from. And it just seems intentional the way they line up, the way they hit certain plays out of certain formations. And for us, it just seems like rinse and repeat. And even with the runs, like, okay, we got some yards out of ISO last week. Let's do it again. Okay, we got some yards out of ISO. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, but where's the intentionality? We're in the second half now. And it's not that we shouldn't run it, but again, it just doesn't seem well planned to me. And so I know a lot of people will probably talk about the goal line as well. Yeah, there you go. Just run the ball. Completely different team, completely different defense, different context. But I'm a fan of running the ball on the goal line. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying don't get too swept up in just this straw hole narrative where it's like, oh, that's what it is. That's what I saw, so that's what it is. That's not how it all works out. But, yeah, overall, it's concerning. It's very concerning. And I would say that even if Nagy, which I believe is actually good at offense, but he's holding back because of Trubisky, even if that's the case, this is too much. It's time to get to, at this point, it's time to get to some concepts and things that you like. I'm not saying necessarily force him to do things that he's not good at, but you have to explore a little more than you have. because it's very unimaginative. It's very lackluster. I can't help but look at Kansas City, and not to do the whole it's just so happened the situation. Kansas City doesn't have Mahomes right now. You have Matt Moore, and they're still getting the ball to people. And again, they're good weapons. I would say better weapons if you're talking about Kelsey and Tyreek Hill, and man, maybe not Sammy Watkins, but some better weapons. But still, good weapons. They're still getting yards. They're still getting the ball. And he's not doing what Mahomes is doing, but the offense is moving. And the thing is, we're not moving. I don't care we're not putting up 30 points and all that. We're not even moving the ball. 1.5 yards. 1.5 yards of football. That's unexcusable with your starting quarterback. So whatever apprehensions there are with Nagy and the way we're calling plays and what we're selecting, it needs to be cleaned up because this is crazy. MVP of the offense, I don't even know if really could give one. I guess Dave Montgomery. I mean, he got the big play catch as well, which was a nice little I'll have to watch tape before I say it, but to me it looked like a nice concept. One that you usually see with Tariq Cohen, but we'll see if it was just another curl with another vertical up the seam, but I like that. But so I guess Dave Montgomery. All right, so defense. Overall, I give them a B-. And again, more of a tale of two halves. We were so sloppy in the first half. But we bend and we didn't break. That's why I'm in the B area, because it could have got a little out of hand, but we held to field goals 2 times in a row. And then we continued to play tough. But the penalties were atrocious. The run defense is atrocious. I've talked about, or the interior run defense. Been talking about this for weeks, and it's just come to fruition, especially with a team like the Eagles. Like, that O-line's got some power on it. So we was getting spanked. It was pretty bad. And one of the things is, and we'll look at the tape, but Eddie Jackson, the safeties have to play a little more aggressive. And I get it, they're not run defenders, but I didn't do the Chargers touchdown video film breakdown. But as I mentioned on that play, Eddie Jackson was the reason that it went for a score. And you'll see it a couple times, because the thing is, if there's types of power plays or zone plays and the linebackers make a move and then there's a cutback, so now the linebackers are washed up, that's when the safety has to replace and make that play. And too many times Eddie Jackson and Clinton Dix like to sit back, 5 or 7 yards and wait to catch people. And by that time, it's too late. They're coming downhill. And so Eddie got a little more aggressive later in the second half. We saw him pretty much bounce off Jordan Howard, but at least he came down. That's what I want to see. Look where he hit him. He hit him in the backfield. He didn't make the tackle, but that's where you want to initiate contact. And so that felt a little better. I felt like Roquan was a little more aggressive in the run game in the second half, not just catching blocks, but actually fighting off of them a little bit. But for the most part, yeah, and that's really what set the whole Eagles thing up, because they're versatile with those 2 tight ends. They can run a lot of formations out of that. But the thing is, once they start running the ball on you, and you saw us jumping off sides, we were so geeked to try to stop the run. That's when they hit the play action, the tight end delay routes, the tight end screen routes. Like, it's easy pickings. And so that run game sets the whole thing up. But trust me, when we look at it, it was some massive walls being created on that O-line for the running back. And yeah, that was not good. But we tightened up. We tightened up later in the game. There's some ups and downs. Definitely, we were bailed out a few times by Alshon Jeffrey, and Jeffrey ended up catching a 3rd down conversion that really sealed that drive for them in the end of the game. But before that, he had some major drops, and they were like, "Oh, Kyle Fuller." No one did anything. Like, Alshon just dropped those balls. So we were bailed out a few times in the past even, but overall, again, I like Prince. He's feisty, and he's not super athletic, but he's feisty, man. I really appreciate him more and more every week. But yeah, I mean, it's tough. Everybody can take some blame. I'll say that. Khalil Mack included, all those guys, because I've said this for the longest. You can't expect pass defense to hold up that well every single game. There's not a lot of pass rush. They've got some coverage sacks this game, and one was a sack that Carson gave up because it was a missed screen. So we got some coverage sacks, but you can't expect that out of the secondary every time. We got to get some quicker pressure, and we just have not seen that yet. So everybody can take a little bit of blame on this one. So as far as the MVP, I give it to Prince. Prince made some big time plays, and he least fault. So yeah, I'll go there. So anyway, overall, I said what I said last week, and that's kind of where I stand. As I mentioned, that I see us as what we are, and you see we had a somewhat close game. There was some opportunities that could have went our way, but didn't. Some we didn't take advantage of. And, this could have easily been a 2-point win our way, rather than, an 8-point loss. So that's the kind of team we are right now. So anyway, go to the comment section. Let me know what you think. Share it around. Get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe. And remember, stay up and bear down.